kind of each come up with like, all right, what would our plan be if we were in charge here to handle the deadline? So you want to get us rocking here?
Sure. My first one is trading Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson
Easy.
goes to the Minnesota Wild is where I sent him. I toyed around with Winnipeg, but it's just it's kind. I don't know if he's going to sign off on that. I think he's got the heart set on Minnesota, and rightfully so. I also look like cap wages allows you to look at certain players and see what teams can afford that player. And there were only really a few that could afford him, that were in a playoff position that I could see him going to. Like, I don't see him going to Winnipeg. So to Minnesota. Now, I'm not just saying like, he goes to Minnesota. Great. Awesome podcasting. We haven't been saying that for the last 3 months. But my return is Zeev Boynum and a 2025 second round pick.
Okay.
From the Minnesota Wild. Now, my notes on that are this. And then once I list my notes out, you break it down. His value is lower right now. But I think that Boynum could be a star. He can absolutely be a stud going forward. So I'm all in. I might even take a third instead of a second, just for valuation's sake. You know, some people might say like, that's too much. Okay, fine. I'll lower the second to third. I don't give a shit. If we can't get Zeev Boynum, though, backup is Danila Yurov or David Jiricek. Although they just acquired him, so I don't know if they're gonna trade him.
Yeah,
and then or Height or Ogren. I have in all caps here plenty of options in Minnesota.
I was gonna say, if you're trading him to Minnesota, you know that they don't have a first.
Yeah,
I think you're more concerned about what prospect you're getting back for him in that capacity. Just because you brought up Boyum, which I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would that be your favorite potential realistic, I'll say in air quotes, option?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's Boyum or not bust, but like it's Boyum. That's what I want.
Okay. So I would be good if it was like, let's pretend we're Lou. Hey, we're on the phone. A second in and Boyum. I'm willing to trade Boyum, but you're killing me on the draft capital. Can we bump that down? I think we go, because at that point, what's the difference between a second and a third?
Yeah, exactly. For us, I get it. For anyone who might be listening to this saying like we are overvaluing our own players, that's going to be a theme, and not on purpose. It's just that's going to be a theme for any team trading away one of their assets because they think that they're so valuable. It might be less, but this is what I'm aiming for.
But Mitch, I don't think you are in this instance because many national writers have penned Brock Nelson as the number one asset on the market. So essentially, there could be a bidding war for Brock Nelson, which is what scared the life out of me of the thought of Lou Lamoriello wanting to sign him. It's like, no, please insert 3 to 4 contending teams in here, or teams who think they that they're going to be a deep playoff team. And go from there. Now, to jump in for a second, because I am also trading Brock Nelson. So I will. How about I give you my Brock Nelson trade and we talk about both kind of together.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So this is not a team that I brought up a lot for Brock Nelson, but I think I made a connection here, and let me see if I could sell you on it. So I'm trading Brock Nelson to the Detroit Red Wings.
Okay.
And my reasoning behind that is because they just lost Kopp to injury, and they have a incredibly long playoff drought that they're dealing with. And I'm wondering if they feel like this might be our best chance to get over the hump and make the playoffs and make some noise this year. Like, let's go for it. Let's push our chips to the table. Because right now they are currently in a playoff spot. They're the number one wild card team with 66 points. They're 4 points back of Tampa for third in the Atlantic. But they're definitely one of the teams in the East in contention for either third in their division or one of the 2 wild card spots, I would say.
Yeah.
So they do have a first round pick. And my thought was a first round pick and Marco Kasper, who was a 8th overall pick in 2022. He's played 53 games in the NHL this year. This is kind of his first action in the NHL. Not a ton of production, 23 points, But his traits that jump out to me when, just doing a little bit of digging here, he plays with speed and physicality. And that seems like a point of emphasis that Patrick Waugh has really been hitting on, that he wants to play with more speed, but he also likes guys who have a physical element to their game. And this kid's young too. At 20, I don't think he's a finished product. Like, I know he's pacing out to between 35 and 40 points, but I think there's room for growth there.
Yeah, and size 6'1", 183, right? Big kid. Yeah, he's not scoring a crap ton, but he's still quite young. He turns 21 in April, in about a month. So he's still quite young, much younger than Simon Holmstrom, and he's only getting better and better and better. The production is low. Time on ice is a little low as well. He's averaging 14.48, which is less than what he averaged 2 years ago when he, played one game in the NHL. Yeah. So I guess not an average there. But that time on ice has started to go up. He's averaging somewhere around 19 minutes over his last 5 games, and he's got 4 points in those 5 games. So there's something there if we give him ice time.
They bumped him up in the lineup because some of the injuries. I believe he's playing top line left wing right now, which that's not where he's been all year, and you could tell by the ice time. But I thought there was some intrigue there as a former top 10 pick, has size, isn't afraid to throw the body around, but plays with speed to kind of fit that Patrick Waugh mold a little bit.
I like it. Yeah, especially he goes up into the lineup and he's producing, because sometimes guys go up top of the lineup and it doesn't click, right? We've seen that ourselves, right? Simon Holmstrom went top of the lineup and he was okay, but it's it doesn't seem to really click, at least at that moment. But right now for Marco Kasper, again, he's got 4 points his last 5 games. He's averaging 3 shots a game, maybe 2.5, 3. That's a lot, man. And hits, he's got 10, 14, 16 hits in his last 5 games and playing 19. He's doing all of it, man. Yeah, I think you got me sold on this. I like that return a lot, because it's not even just a prospect that might play in the NHL. This is a kid who's doing it right now.
Right, and is still very young too. Like I said, at 20, it's a little bit different if he was, I don't know, 23, let's say, and this is his first action in the league. He's played 50 games and has 20 points. But this is a 20-year-old that we're talking about. So I know he might not have the crazy name recognition, but also at the same time too, I felt when I was going through and looking, I was are they going to really trade a former top 10 pick? They have a ton of prospects. They have a lot because they've been bad for a long time. And my thought was they're finally in a position where they're in a playoff spot right now. They have this drought that's probably hanging over their shoulder that they want to end. And you just lost the top 6 guy to injury. So maybe they'd pony up and try to get Brock Nelson in there.
Yeah, and is he part of that young core of players? He's the youngest guy on their team right now, but you've got they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 players outside of Kasper that are under 24 years old, in Moritz Seider, Elmer Soderblom, Lucas Raymond, and Simon Edvinsson. These are top players for them. Not to mention, you still have Joe Veleno, who's 25 years old. DeBrincat is 27. Larkin is 28. That's their core of young players. And they don't even have a goalie yet, although they've got Sebastian Cossa coming up soon. They could probably shake this guy and still be okay.
Right. And that was my thought too. Because it's, you don't want to go, let me look at some of the best teams and their prospect pool, usually not very good, but let's pick their best one. This isn't really that case, because they have a lot of those young guys already. So they're in a spot where they could afford to move off of someone to get that veteran presence that they might be looking for.
I really like it. I like that better, not better than mine, because I really want Steve Boynum, but in terms of realism, I feel like yours might be more attainable than mine. I don't think that Minnesota wants to part with it. No one wants to part with anyone, but I think that they'd be very resistant to parting with Steve Boynum.
I potentially think so too. I was reading, I forget which NHL writer said this, and it was speculation. It wasn't this is what it would be. But what about Nelson for Marco Rossi 1-for-1?
Oh, I would do it in a second. I doubt they're doing that, but I would do it in a second.
I said the same thing, which is why that wasn't my option, although I really thought about it long and hard because I would love it. But I don't think that's something that they would do as much as I would love that. To me, that would be an obvious no-brainer.
Yeah, they're giving someone away that's integral to the core of their team, which isn't the case with as you mentioned with Casper and the Detroit Red Wings. They obviously want him to succeed and they would like him to stay, but he's not necessarily part of that core right now. So yeah, it makes more sense. From there, my second pick, my second move was to trade Jean-Gabriel Pageau. The interest is high in that guy. I sent him to Winnipeg.
Okay.
I think as a Canadian, he would be more willing to go to a place like Winnipeg. Most players don't want to. They're also elite as shit. Like I haven't seen if they won tonight, but they're up 3-1 last I checked. And that would make it, they're still up 3-1 with like just under 5 minutes to go. That would make it 11 wins in a row for them.
Yeah, they're an absolute wagon.
Like, there's a real potential that if Jean-Gabriel Pageau joins the Winnipeg Jets, they go deep. Not just because of Jean-Gabriel Pageau, but you add him to what he brings specifically in the playoffs to what they're doing there in Winnipeg and look the hell out. That's going to be a wagon, man.
I know that usually on everyone's no trade list is Winnipeg because not necessarily the team, but just like what you're dealing with. But at this point in Pageau's career, or any of these guys over 30, you want to go ring chase for 2 years in Winnipeg and then go sign somewhere else to end your career? I think there's a lot of worse things you could do.
I totally agree, man. And a legitimate shot. You're not joining a team that's in the wild card hunt or bottom of their division, or sorry, at the bottom 3 seeded spots. I mean, you're looking at one of the better teams, if not the best team in the NHL. And their core is locked up for a while. They're not changing anything. So you'd be joining effectively the New York Islanders when they made their deep runs. You're joining that team. If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.